So, welcome back to the Sober Broker. Obviously, this show exists not only to highlight stories of recovery, accountability, and faith, but to focus on the discipline and the rebuilding a meaningful life after the addiction or destructive seasons. It's not about glorifying the fall, but really honoring the rebuild and what we learned through the process. Today, we're joined by Daniel Harrison Brooks from Lexington, North Carolina. He's an entrepreneur, he's a business owner, recovery coach, and a man building stability and preparing a future or for a future family. And a lot of people see success now, the business, the growth, the ambition, but they don't see everything that made him who he was, the 18-year-old freshman in college who lost his mom, unfortunately, to breast cancer, and just taking hallucinogens and, kind of riding the waves of life. This moment alone could really help define someone. And today we're going to really do a deeper dive into that image. We're talking about grief, addiction, and arrests, slip-ups, and then of course the discipline and the responsibilities that led his life to today. So Daniel, welcome to the show.
I appreciate it, Patrick. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely, bro. I'm so happy that you reached out. This show has really been a passion project for me, just being able to open up my heart and mind and, the word of God to other people, to be able to share my story. And of course, the most important is hearing other people's stories and listening to their vulnerability. And you're episode 24 that I've had. And I started this at the beginning of January, kind of actually in the middle of January, but I wanted to build something like this. And one day I just started doing it, and I really wanted to only have 4 to 6 sessions a month. And so, that would have come out to 12 to, a little 12 to 16 episodes or so, 18 episodes. But
right.
Yeah, we've grown a lot. And on top of everything that we're doing, this is probably the highlight of my day, is being able to speak and hear other people's stories and things about redemption. So thank you again for choosing to be here. Just start from the beginning, brother. Tell us a little bit more about your story, kind of the ups and downs, and then, leading into losing your mom and how that impacted you.
Definitely, man. Grew up here in Lexington, North Carolina. And, like I was telling you earlier, it's a smaller town, and, everyone kind of knows everybody and everything. And I grew up playing competitive tennis tournaments every weekend, and, um, was training probably 2 to 4 hours a day after school, and, tournaments on the weekends, and constantly traveling. And, I did that from 8 years old all the way to college. And, trying to do that with school, it's stressful. It's a lot. I mean, that's all you do is eat, sleep, and breathe tennis, and, training, and just, all that type of stuff. So, that was stressful. I was diagnosed with like ADHD as a kid, and, you know, trying to focus in school, that was a struggle. Trying to sit there for 8 hours a day and just focus. I mean, it was impossible for me. But
I can
um,
relate with that.
yeah. And it was difficult too, because after school I've got to play tennis. So trying to like balance, homework and studying for tests and stuff with tennis. I mean, it was impossible. So most days I would just try to finish my homework during class. And that way, when I got home, I could just focus on playing tennis and, just all that. So it was difficult, man. It really was. It was difficult trying to like have that kind of balance in life and everything. And then in 6th grade, my mom was diagnosed with breast cancer. And, I was young, man. I didn't really realize the severity of it. And, just went year by year and, saw her struggle and, go through all the chemo and radiation and losing hair and just all that type of stuff. And her just, being tired all the time and, struggling to find energy to get through the day and, all that type of stuff. So, as a kid, that was rough. That was rough, seeing her go through all that. And, she was a school teacher as well. So once again, for her, trying to find that balance between, life and cancer and, teaching students. I know I can only imagine how, tough that was for her. But yeah, man. So yeah, I went to actually the same school she taught at in middle school. And then that was a public school. Ended up going to a private school for high school, just to kind of get a better education. My coach was the head coach at the high school as well. So I could, get off from school, walk right up to the tennis courts and train. Sometimes I would train in Greensboro as well. So my dad would come pick me up after school, and we'd have to drive all the way to Greensboro and then play for 2 hours, then drive all the way back. And, my high school was almost 45 minutes away from Lexington as well. So just a lot of driving every day. So, just, I was just worn out all the time. But, yeah, after 10th grade, that summer, I tried cannabis for the first time. And, um, at that time in my life, I kind of fell in love with it. And, I had ADHD, and it kind of like helped me calm down and focus. But, um, you know, that led to using it, every couple weeks to every weekend, and then daily. And then that leads to other things. And I started, drinking alcohol as well. So, this is like 15, I'm 15 years old, smoking weed every day and drinking alcohol on the weekends. And yeah, man, I just kind of got addicted to that lifestyle of just essentially partying, I guess, at a young age, plus school and playing tennis tournaments and all that. And then, as I got older, once I got to college, I went to college up in the mountains called Lee's McRae, and I played tennis there for a short amount of time. I got redshirted because of my grades from high school, and I wasn't really fond of the coach as well. We just did not get along. So that maybe lasted about 4 months. I just got really burnt out on having to travel with them, and I couldn't play, you know what I mean? So I'm sitting by the sidelines watching them play, and I'm just jealous because I can't even, I'm there, I go to that college to play tennis, and I can't even play. So I just ended up quitting the team. And at that point I just tried to do school and got into partying really, really heavily. Got into, a lot more drugs, and, you know, uh, tried a lot new things. And, that's when, you just start experimenting. So, trying mushrooms and LSD and cocaine and Molly, which is like pure ecstasy, and just all these things. And yeah, it just leads to one thing leads to another, partying every day. And then eventually, I quit going to class, and yeah, just kind of partied every day, man. And literally literally every day, I would just party all night long. And, it just became this super vicious cycle. And then I'll never forget, I got a message from a girl I went to middle school with. This is probably 4 to 5 months into me being in college. And she said, "Hey, is your mom okay?" And I said, "Yeah." "What are you talking about?" "She's fine." And she's like, "Oh, I heard that, like, her breast cancer's gotten really bad." So I was just, checking in. I was like, "Huh, that's strange. Like, I know nothing about this, no one told me." I've kind of, my mom had breast cancer from when I was in 6th grade all the way to college. And, you know, I just thought it was, you know, year by year, she's okay. I mean, she's losing her hair and dealing with a lot, with the chemo and radiation. But I just thought it was like another normal year. You know what I mean? Like, I didn't know how bad it was. And just one day I went home, and I didn't realize how bad it had gotten. And at that point, she was in a hospital bed inside of my home living room. And man, that was rough. It was rough.
Bet coming home to that for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, seeing your mom full of life, and, being a hospital bed every day,
Okay, bro.
the lifeless, like a mummy, just real skinny, um, can't really talk, uh, can't really open her eyes, it was rough. and it played a huge emotional toll on me. And I'll be honest with you, for a while, all I could do was just like walk by her every day. I couldn't even look at her almost. It killed me to look at her, and I couldn't even really talk to her because she, was almost lifeless at this point. And I kept partying every day, like when I would come back home, even. And I remember my dad telling me, like, hey, you need to talk to your mom. You need to quit ignoring her. You need to talk to her. She wants to talk to you. And so, we had a conversation. She's just talking about how much she loves me, and, she wanted me to graduate from college and, just go on and live life and everything. And, yeah, we had that conversation. That was on like a Easter break that I was back from college. And I want to say it was on a Saturday that I went back up to college for, because, I had school Monday. And, yeah, I partied that night, didn't realize my mom had only kind of like a couple of days left at this point. And so, yeah, me and my friends are partying, and I'm using LSD and Molly, which is pure ecstasy. I'm drinking, I'm smoking. We end up, staying out all night partying, and we got an idea. We're like, hey, let's go watch the sunrise on top of Beach Mountain. It'd be pretty cool to sit there and just watch the sun come up. And so we go up there. It's like me and two of my friends, and we get up there, we sit down. It's probably about 6 o'clock in the morning. The sun's finally starting to rise and everything. We're at like the highest point of Beach Mountain, and we're, just sitting there talking, watching the view. And I get a call from my dad about 6:10, 6:15. We hadn't even been up there long. And I didn't answer it, because I was on drugs. I didn't want to talk to him. You know, I was nervous. Um, but he left me a voicemail, and he was like, hey, you need to call me. Basically, I could just tell like there's bad news. So I called him back, and yeah, he, told me my mom passed away. And yeah, I don't know how to explain it, man. It was just the craziest feeling you could ever imagine, especially being on the drugs I was all night long and being on top of a mountain watching the sunrise and just like trying to process all these emotions. And um he told me, hey, you need to come home, and we'll take care of the school part later. And yeah, that's how I found out my mom died. I was on, heavy drugs all night
Yeah.
long. And it was an experience.
Yeah, that's tough,
It was an
man.
experience.
I can
Yeah.
hear
Yeah.
obviously the emotion in your voice and, you just being able to process it. I'm sure
Yeah.
every time it's maybe a little bit different whenever you think about it. But thank you for being vulnerable and sharing that with me. It's tough, man. I haven't personally lost a close family member like that outside of, grandparents. But
Yeah.
I know there's always some sense of identity that happens, obviously, from just listening the past couple of minutes to your story. You went from a huge identity shift of not playing tennis in college anymore to just, being a full time student to, then finding identity in the party scene. And then, you losing your mom is an extremely big shift in who you are, maybe how you were spending your time and the things that you were doing. I mean, I can imagine the feelings that you were experiencing at the time that you got those calls. I mean, not only, because of the drugs, because I mean, typically, my experience with LSD, Molly, cocaine, whatever you have it, those are all feel good drugs.
Right.
So, you maybe had a difficult time really understanding the severity of it and what all, really that meant at the time. So, I mean, what story from that, like, did you start telling yourself after your mom passed to help, because I imagine, like, you know, you were experiencing some grief, obviously, definitely, definitely
Definitely.
some shame from, doing what you were doing at the time and maybe not
Right.
prioritizing as much time with your mom. So how
Definitely.
did you move forward from that?
Yeah. Yeah. So, like when that happened and, I had to drive home as well, even that was a blur, because had been up all night, partying. So like, I remember trying to just stay awake on the drive home. I remember I had to pull over and like throw water in my eyes from crying and just try to like come to realization. And I remember as soon as I got home, like I went straight to bed and just like slept. And I'll be honest, I don't even remember that time of my life. I just remember being home and I'm sure I saw my friends and then, um, having to go to the funeral home and see her in the casket and everything and see my sisters and yeah, just try to process everything that's going on and, have the funeral. It was interesting. I remember the drive back up to college after a week of being home. I felt like I kept seeing her everywhere. Like I'd be on the highway driving and I swore I saw her pass in a car, like a random car. And I know they call that something, I can't remember what it's called, but like I just started seeing her like everywhere. Like I don't know how to explain it. You know, I guess like wishing, she was still here. So that was a weird thing to process alone, just like essentially seeing her pop up everywhere, even though she's not here. Um, but yeah, I mean, I'm thankful I had like a really good friend group that really just like was there for me, had my back and just a really good support system. But I mean, the first thing I did as soon as I got back to college after that week, partied hard a lot. I mean, every day for like 8 months at least. I mean, I remember doing LSD for a month straight one time with other drugs. I mean, I just went hard as possible and I just did not want to be in reality and, deal with just life. And pretty much I tried to go back to a couple classes, but I mean, let's be honest, I couldn't even barely get through class and so I just quit going completely at that point and just partied. And I mean, really that's it back then. I can't even remember anything else that I did other than just party every single day to like cope with her passing. And then I wouldn't even say, the partying came from her, passing away and trying to cope. I mean, I definitely did try to cope by doing that, but I was partying before, you know, I found out that she had, was her cancer was severe as it is, but that kind of like ignited it, you know, to fuel, me to go way harder. So yeah, I mean, I don't know. That's really all I can speak on that, as far as that goes. It just, kind of transpired into partying even heavier and um, just trying to fill that void of happiness and just be around friends 24/7. Like I could not be alone at all. Every day I had to like be around a friend or partying with friends or something just because I could not deal with being alone by myself. It was just extremely tough.
Yeah, I can relate with a lot of your story, man. I mean, like I mentioned, I never lost, my mom or my dad. Um, and truthfully, your story makes me want to reach out to them more. Me and my dad are super close. Like, we talk, if not every day, at least a couple times a week.
Yeah.
And
Right.
my mom, though, her and I have since I've kind of been in recovery. Our relationship has just changed. There's been obviously, a lot of stuff that's happened in the past, but predominantly, it makes you question things. And that's honestly why I love doing this is because it gives me a lot of perspective on, my own life too, not just hearing
Right.
yours and understanding a little bit more about, what's made you you, but just being able to process in a different way. So
Definitely.
I was a college athlete too. I played soccer in college. Actually, at Carson Newman University was my first university that I played at.
Yeah.
And so we actually played Leeds McRae a lot, which is
Okay.
cool.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh yeah.
I had a good
Yeah.
buddy who was the goalkeeper at Leeds McRae. Um, and
Okay.
so always loved playing them. I got to start the season actually,
Mhm. Cool.
and I remember my very first game. My mom and dad were standing on two separate sides of the field, and I remember thinking, I was like, "Oh, that's strange. They've always sat together like my entire life. All my games that they've were able to attend to together. They've always been sitting with one another." Shortly after at Christmas break, I came home. My mom was moved out of the house, and they had separated. So that's probably the closest thing that I could relate to as far as like a death is kind of a death to their marriage. And similar thing. Once college soccer was kind of up, I transferred to a North Carolina state school, UNCW, and that's really where I started partying. See, before then I dabbled with cannabis and things like that, but once I got to, the beach is really when drinking started happening a lot. Definitely, smoking marijuana throughout the day, and doing other things like you mentioned. I mean, LSD, Molly, cocaine, all the feel goods just to help distract me from, kind of the identity shift that I was experiencing because I didn't know how to process, the emotions behind it or really understand, what I was going through. Like the experience that, my life was, I didn't know how to dissect it and understand what the next steps were, what the next best steps were for my life. And after college, I mean, it just got worse. I started not only using but dealing, and so I would then be constantly surrounding myself with people that may not have been the best influence on me. I never did like painkillers or anything because I knew my personality. I knew that that's something that would really take hold of me if I were to do them. And on top of that, since I had so many people that were using around me, I saw the impacts that it had on them. I mean, it completely ruined their lives. And I lost in between like a three-year period, I lost like 12 friends to overdoses. And not that's not even counting the people who, you know, stole from me just to be able to buy more, or
Right.
friendships that were ruined because of those drugs and just the influence that they had on them. And so there's a lot that comes around from all those things, man. It's difficult to understand, there's a lot of grief and shame that kind of covers all of that. But I think the biggest part of recovery for me is just again looking back and knowing that, you know, I may not had to have gone through all those specific things to be here where I am today, but it gives me good insight and perspective to be able to then build off of and, really create a better future, not only for me and my family, but help others through, these stories and being able to help them process their emotions and maybe see the brighter side of things.
Right.
So, obviously, during that time of you losing your mom, you know, you were obviously on LSD, partying, and things like that. The fallout from your mom, he just decided to party more and kind of embark, more further down that path.
Right.
Was it like the feeling of abandonment that caused you to want to kind of go further down those paths? Or what were you really experiencing at the time, like emotionally, that just created that urge to be surrounded with, constantly by other people and
Right.
always, kind of flood your system with the feel goods.
Right. Right. So, back then as well, I was also dealing. So, same thing. wasn't, probably around the best people that I should have been around. And, when you're dealing, you know, you have a large supply of drugs around you. And I mean, you pretty much have access to do as much as you want. Um, you know, that was one thing. And yeah, I mean, it just, I don't know. It had just gotten so out of hand. And the loneliness that, and then you're trying to fit in, 18, freshman year of college, you're trying to impress people and impress girls and look cool. And, you know, so there's that. And, and I had always felt like this loneliness growing up as a kid. I felt like I never fit in truly to one group of people. I was always cool with everybody. It doesn't matter who you were, the popular kids, the not so popular kids. I was cool with everybody, but I felt like I truly never fit in any group. So, I always dealt with like that feeling, trying to just figure out where I fit in basically. And then, when I got to college and met a cool group of people, and then it, led to partying every day. And, I finally felt accepted and that I felt like I fit in and, everything that, I feel like it's not one of the reasons why I, used, but it was definitely a big reason that like I finally felt like I fit in for once in my life,
Yeah.
and had a, good group of friends that cared about me. There's people, there's obviously people should have been hanging out with, but some of those friends, like they truly were real friends, and I still talk, to a lot of them to this day, and a lot of them are also sober as well. And unfortunately, I've also lost, quite a few friends from overdoses. That was hard. Within a year after my mom passing, I had lost one of my best friends, to an overdose. And same situation kind of as you. He had his parents had divorced, and I don't know exactly if that's what caused the overdose, but I know he had been partying really hard in college, and I think it played a big factor. I mean, I think, like you said, trying to process the emotions of your parents not being together anymore. I mean, I can only imagine what that would feel like. I'm thankful I never had to experience that, but I, saw it with my friend that passed away. I saw it with another friend that when his parents, split up, he also, got really bad on drugs as well. And, so I saw a lot of things, just a lot of different things, that had to do with life and how people processed it, and everything. So I learned at a young age just about life in general, just a lot of life experiences. And yeah, I don't know. I just felt like I needed to be around people all the
Yeah.
time. And it was tough, man. Like even to this day, like I'd say up until about 10 years ago is when I finally was happy with who I am as a person, and finally felt like I could be around myself. I could be alone. I didn't need anyone to be around 24/7. Um, you know, everyone has those lonely moments, but you learn to, just be comfortable with yourself and be happy that you're alone. Sometimes it's nice to have those those breaks away from life and people and all that. So, you know, learning to finally be happy with yourself is a tough thing, but I'm thankful that I like finally figured, me out. And then yeah, man, dealing with relationships too back then. When I was 19 after I lost my mom, and, trying to be in a relationship and party hard, and you've got them worrying about you every day and reaching out to your family like, hey, they're worried, about you, and everything. That's looking back, that's a scary thing that I can only imagine what I, put one of my exes through. Just seeing me, like I was every day. And I know one of the girls I had dated back in college, we had broken up on Thanksgiving Day after about 2.5 years, 3 years of being together. Unfortunately, she cheated on me. And yeah, I was super in love with her. I was even willing to forgive her, that I understood. And willing to make it work. She didn't want to, she ended up dating the guy that she cheated on me with. But that day, I'll never forget, it was Thanksgiving Day. And she was like, this is when I was living in Boone at the time. She was like, if you're coming to Thanksgiving with me, it's only as friends. So I said, well, screw that. I won't go to Thanksgiving with you. And, just a like side note from 18 to 19, I'm partying, doing all these drugs. Well, I start using painkillers, get heavily addicted to painkillers, um, using them every day. My friend had passed away. That kind of put me in the straight and narrow for a little bit. I quit using painkillers. I was still using other drugs, but I wasn't using painkillers every day and, heavily addicted to those. So I had gotten off of those. And, when Thanksgiving happened and she basically, we basically broke up that day, I started back heavy on painkillers. Literally that day on Thanksgiving Day. I didn't spend Thanksgiving. I didn't go back to Lexington and spend it with family. I found painkillers and I started using and got, the worst off of them that I ever had been. And that lasted all of 6 months. Ended up owing a drug dealer a lot of money and a couple other people and, had to pay them back. And then I got arrested April Fool's Day of 2004 in an undercover drug bust. My friend and his girlfriend at the time, she sold to an undercover cop. I ran and tried to get away, didn't get away. I will say that I was thankful that they didn't find what I had on me because it would have been multiple felonies. So I only got a resisting arrest misdemeanor. So I got very lucky. That was a huge wake up call. And right after I got arrested, I moved back home with my dad for about 2 years. Got clean, told him everything, got help. Was going to like what they call like a Suboxone clinic type of place where you go see a counselor for an hour once a week, and you get drug tested weekly, and you do like group meetings weekly and all that. And it was supposed to be a 2-year program, but I lasted from January to August, and I had saved up enough of the medicine to, you know, enough for like 5 years to like try to just get off of it on my own. And I will say I was so determined to get clean because I just was so tired of living that lifestyle. And when you're on painkillers, your body is never like your temperature is like always hot, then cold, and you're constantly adjust. Like if you're in your car, you're hot, you turn on the AC, and then you get too cold, and then you turn on the heat. I mean, it's just a never ending like feeling of just can never be comfortable. And I'll never forget November 16th of 2015 is when I like took my last little piece of Suboxone and got clean, and I was just so ready to change my life. And that's when I, got clean off of everything and got a job and became manager of that job. And then, you know, every year after that, just tried to like, set goals and improve myself. I did still drink a little bit and use cannabis every day. I didn't drink every day, but I did use cannabis every day. And I never had a drinking problem, just kind of just did it to, when people were partying
Sure.
essentially.
Yeah.
But I completely got sober in 2018. That's when I quit doing everything, cannabis, alcohol, everything. So
Well, that's awesome, man. And I'm
yeah,
glad
yeah,
glad you're sober, and it seems like you're in a really good place now. So yeah,
definitely. Yeah, yeah.
at that point, obviously you had a lot of self determination to just be able to, get off those things and focus on you know, your personal well being. Did you have? I mean, outside of the Suboxone claim, did you have any other kind of like recovery program that you were a part of, or
No, no, honestly, no. So my friend that I got arrested with, he didn't get arrested. His girlfriend and me did. We actually both moved back home to Lexington, and we actually grew up next to each other.
okay?
So we were brothers through it all. I mean, we even, even went to the same I mean, everything, like we did everything together, but, we both got clean at the same time. So we were kind of, keeping each other clean and making sure we're both not using and everything, which, that can't be a bad thing because it's your best friend. You're, you're using, but no, I mean, as far as like anything else, no, I really didn't have anything other than my dad and just a strong will to want to get clean, man. I mean, I was just so tired of living that lifestyle and spending thousands of dollars. I mean, at my worst, I mean, I was probably spending $600 to $800 a day on my habit. So I was just tired. I mean, no one can keep up that lifestyle for long. So I just told myself like it's now or never. And, you're either going to be in jail again or, dead or continue just to, live day by day trying to, use. And yeah, I was just tired of it. And, I was ready just to work and find a job and just get my life together and just try to get, help. So yeah, I mean, I'll never forget even my sister and her husband at the time. They're like, you need to go to one of those wilderness places to get sober and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, no, like that might have worked for someone y'all know, but it's not going to work for me. I've got to be the one that wants to do this. And I was ready and I did do it, and I'm super thankful that I had, you know, a strong enough will and determination to want to get clean. But, yeah, man, I couldn't take it anymore. I couldn't take living that lifestyle. I couldn't take using all the time, the spending the money. I lost a lot of friends, whether it be, unfortunately they passed away or just friends that didn't want to be around me anymore because I'm using. People's parents are talking about you and their kids because they think you're the bad influence. I remember, I'll never forget, I just moved back home with my dad and I texted a buddy just to make sure he was okay. I think I might ask him if he needed anything, but like I wasn't even selling him drugs back then or anything. And his mom texted me back and was like, "You're never going to see him again and you'll never hang out with him again." I'm like, whoa, I'm just here to like, I was just checking in to make sure he was okay because I knew he was all bad off as well. And,
Yeah.
and just that feeling of like people think you're the cause of everyone else, your friends around you is not it's a sad feeling. It's not a good feeling. And, you know, it's not, I'm not the one, at the end of the day is forcing them to use drugs. At the end of the day, it's on them, you know what I mean? And that was just like, man, feeling that like burden of like, all these people thinking that you're the problem, instead of really looking at like, hey, my kid has a problem. It's just not a good feeling. And that was another reason too. I was just like tired of like, you know, feeling like I was the reason for their kids' issues and stuff like that. And yeah, I mean, yeah, that was just another big thing that was a part of it, man. I hated to lose my friends because of it and the girls I was dating at the time and um family, not trusting you and just everything that comes along with it. So I was just ready to completely switch my life around and just, move on with my life.
Yeah. So if you didn't do like recovery program and just started, not using and just started choosing to live a different life, what
Right.
did you start doing differently to like kind of fill your time?
Yeah, so it was November 16th of 2015 when I quit, Suboxone and all that. By New Year's, I'd started working out every day. Literally every day, I'd lift weights twice a day. I'd go on walks with my dog. I started playing tennis again,
Good for you.
skateboarding, got a job and tried to work my way up in the job. Became a manager within like 4 months of working there. Yeah, just doing what I could, man, just to like keep my time, focus on positive things and, you know, I mean, at that point too, I didn't want anything to do with painkillers anymore. I was so fed up and done with it. You know, I was just done with it. That's what kept me honestly off of them more than anything is just I was just so fed up with like doing that for so long, like
Yeah, like there's got to be something more to life.
yeah, yeah. I was just tired of like feeling like that. And I'll never forget, when I finally did get clean and sober, it was 2 weeks of hell, absolute hell. I mean, I remember taking hot Epsom salt baths like 3 times a day. And, you're sweating so much and your legs are kicking and you're just trying to make it day by day and hour by hour. I mean, an hour feels like an eternity. And yeah, I just remember like, after those 2 weeks and my energy level finally came back, I like, felt like I could feel the air again. I don't know, I remember going outside and, like, feeling, like, the breeze and just the sun, and I'm like, "I finally feel normal again for once in my life," like, I'd been partying for so long, so many years that, like, man, it was just nice to feel normal again, you know?
Yeah, yeah, I can resonate, man. Uh,
Yeah.
yeah, so during the divorce between me and my wife, we divorced in 2016. Um, got married. So I guess going back to the original story or the first part, I knew my wife in middle school, high school. Um, so we already, knew each other. And I actually was coming out of another relationship and kind of a weird experience. I guess this girl that I was seeing was in two different relationships and I didn't know it. And there was this one time where she asked me to come to where she worked after she got off so we could talk. So I drove out there and then we went to the back of the building to like smoke marijuana.
Yeah.
And then two other cars came back there and they pulled me out. It was her other boyfriend, I guess. And they pulled me out of the car and beat the crap out of me. I remember I woke up and like a pool of blood. My head was, popped open in the back and I was just fully concussed and I drove home. I didn't even remember it. And
Dang.
the next day I had to work. I had to open at my job. And I go in and they're like, dude, you look like hell. Like, go home,
Yeah.
get some rest.
Right.
And my, you know, now wife, Megan, she was there. And that's when we kind of like, started talking again, hanging out more. And we both had our separate plans. Like, we didn't actually say that we wanted to spend, eternity together. We actually were just kind of enjoying the time and the moments together. But then she ended up getting
Right.
pregnant. And of course, we tossed around the ideas of options and things like that. And we decided, obviously, to keep the baby. And then we had her. I was working two full-time jobs, basically working breakfast, lunch, and dinner at two different restaurants here in Asheville. Two great restaurants. I mean, I was making six figures waiting tables.
Nice. Yeah,
And
yeah.
so I was, creating a good living for my family, but at the same light, I never had time for my family. I had one day off a week and I was just, I knew that there was something else to it. And so basically, on my one day off, I decided to go to real estate school and I got my license. And since we, weren't really working on our marriage, we were just kind of working on surviving life, really, you know, bringing money to the table, putting food on the table, just doing everything that I thought was my responsibility, but wasn't
Right.
ever really pouring into the marriage, mostly because if I got home from work after working, 16 to 18 hours a day, I would just want to go to sleep. And so, or I was just kind of like halfway in the conversations that we were having. So she ended up getting a job where she met someone else, decided that she wanted to separate. And literally, I mean, I got my real estate license, and 3 days after, I moved out of the apartment and got my own place. And that's where things like started crumbling. And so we spent 8 years apart in separation. And then about 3 years ago, almost, it's 2 years and 11 months actually from today. We got, or I got this call from her, and there was an event at the place that she lived at where basically a neighbor had gotten stabbed, and the kids saw it. and my daughter. And so she was like, "Can you just, come here?" I was living in Charlotte at the time. So she was like, "Can you just, come here and just be kind of like a stable body in the room, help the kids feel comfortable?" And I was like, "Yeah, sure. That's fine." So I picked up my things and left. Little did she know, like, I was drinking and doing cocaine and not living a life that was good for me. And I got to the point, man, where I couldn't keep up with my responsibilities financially. And so I was living out of my car. So her inviting me to, sleep on the couch sounded pretty dang good.
Right. Yeah.
And then, I came back, we slept on the couch. I ended up staying there for maybe like a week and a half, and then went back to Charlotte. And slowly, God started kind of working within me, just telling me to, like, listen to her, restore my marriage, try to mend the broken pieces. And I literally made me sick to my stomach thinking about it, because loyalty is big for me. you know if you
Absolutely.
hurt me in any kind of way, like, basically you're dead to me. And at least that's how I thought. And so shortly after, that happened, I had asked her if she wanted to go grab a drink, and she's like, "Well, I don't drink anymore. I don't do anything anymore. I'm completely sober." And I said, "Okay, that's, kind of strange," because that was like the core foundation of our relationship was, just being able to sit back and share some drinks and, relax. And so I started going to Celebrate Recovery, which is basically like it's a 12-step program, but it's more biblical based. So there's a lot more core biblical foundations to it rather than, just the standard 12 steps. And at first, I didn't think that I'd ever get acclimated with people in that space. Like, I didn't think that those are necessarily my people, but eventually, it turned to where I wanted to keep going every week and then join a step study program, which is more intense. Like, you really dive into the 12 steps and how you've hurt people, how people have hurt you, all the past hurt and hangups throughout your life, your core, trauma, things that you dealt with as a kid. And man, that changed my life. My sobriety date's April 15th. And so growing through those times, like, my perspective has completely changed, obviously, about, not just drugs and addiction and recovery, but in life in general. Like, the floodgates opened with opportunity for, not only what I could do personally within, my business and impact on the community and my family, but more so with bringing other people, to Christ, and allowing uh, myself to be used as like a vessel, to be able to be an encourager and invite people, to these programs and things. And honestly, that's what led me to starting the Sober Broker too, is just being able to hear other people's stories and listen to, everything that they have gone through. And kind of what I mentioned before, it's a beautiful part about hearing other people's stories is it just gives you perspective on things that you can still work on, or things that you could do better, or things that you are doing, on a consistent basis that, you know, helps improve your life. And so,
Definitely.
yeah, sobriety for me, man, has been a game changer as far as being able to rededicate myself, build a new identity, and kind of refurbish the pain of the past and really focus on, the purpose for my future. So, how now that you are where you are, I mean, you're almost, well, yeah, you're 8 years sober, right? What does your day to day look like now?
So right now it's just, focusing on the businesses that I have. I started a hemp company back in 2018 with three people. We had like a retail store and a warehouse where we like manufactured all the products for our store. We also like white label and private label for other stores throughout North Carolina and other states. Ended up being very successful with that. I was super blessed to make the money that I did and learn so many things and learn just the ins and outs of business, how to make all these products. And then I left that company in 2022, started my own LLC, kind of just doing the same thing. Not on the same scale, I'd say, but like, I was still making really good money. Um, so I did that for about 2 years, and I joined up with a new company, January of last year in 2025. Um, they had been, open as well, had on your own retail store since 2018. Great company, love my partners, great people, very like minded. Uh, so I've been doing that, and then I bought a condo up in Banner Elk, across from Sugar Mountain Ski Resort that that's where I went to college. So I just, I've always loved it up there. But I bought a condo up there and I Airbnb that. So I have like a management company that takes care of, my bookings and all that type of stuff, and everything. And then I still kind of like run my wholesale business on the side that I had started, when I left my old company, which is also in the the hemp industry. And then me and my friend that owned the store that I'm with now, we are opening up it's a grocery store bar sandwich shop. It's kind of like what they call a bodega. They have we have a little bit of everything. So
Yeah, I
we're
love those
hoping to
shops.
open up that, yeah, by April 1st is the goal that we're shooting for. We've been working on it for almost 2 years. I mean, we've had to completely gut the place and even put new pipes underneath the flooring and build walls and I mean, new everything, anything and everything you can think of that goes into the business. I mean, we've had to rebuild
Mhm.
and we got a patio poured out back. We're actually one of the only businesses up on Main Street that has a patio. So we'll have like a back entrance as well. And a lot of people in the community are super excited for us to open. We don't really have anything that's like that in Lexington. So I'm super blessed to, get all that feedback so far and, have people excited for us to open up. And, I know a lot of people in this town and my dad and mom knew, a bunch of people as well. My dad was a police officer for about 30 years. And my sister worked for city council. Um, so, we just know a lot of people and have, I've been super blessed and thankful for all the support from friends and family, with everything that I have in my businesses and everything. And, it's actually cool. My hemp store and my new store that I'm opening up, they're literally across the street from each other on Main Street. So it's super neat, to have both of them on Main Street. My partner for the hemp store and the grocery store concept, he does a lot of stuff with the city as well. So we've gotten very close with like the people that run the, Uptown Lexington and all the city events and stuff. And, they love, our hemp store. They love the concept of the new store. We'll do a ribbon cutting whenever it's time to actually open up and everything. But yeah, I've just been super blessed to, have the support group that I am, that I have. Like you said, loyalty is a huge thing to me. Friendship is a very, very important thing to me. My friends, they mean everything to me, and always showing them support and being there for them when they need me. I've got a lot of friends that come to me when they have problems or someone in their family passes and they just need someone to like talk to or cry to. You know what I mean? I've always been that guy to just sit back and listen, try to give them the best advice that I can based on, you know, the the things that I've lived in my life because I feel like I've lived through any type of scenario you can imagine. So I've just tried to, be there for my friends, whether it be, emotionally or, they just need someone to talk to or business related and all that type of things. And yeah, I mean, that's something that's super important to me is friendship. And, even in like the last 2 or 3 years, like, every time I leave from seeing my friends, like we tell each other, we love each other, like, because you don't know if that's going to be the last time you see them, and,
That's good.
so yeah, it's super important. And then also, faith as well. I'd say in the last 5 to 6 years, I've grown a lot closer to God. I grew up going to church a little bit until about middle school, high school. I quit going for the longest time. I wasn't sure, I was unsure about God and what was out there. And I've always been super spiritual. I've always known that there's definitely a higher power. I believe in, the afterlife and all these things. And I just wasn't, I wasn't sure about God and church and, all those things. But, I just, within the last 6 years, I just became a lot closer to God. And I kind of saw a lot of things that were going on in the world, man. There's a lot of the easiest way for me to put it, there's just a lot of weird satanic things going on around the world right now. And
Definitely strange times.
you keep, yeah, very strange times. And you just keep seeing more and more of it. I mean, you see things getting pushed on kids and even adults, and it's just weird to me. And in my mind, I'm like, well, if they're pushing all this satanic stuff and, believing in Lucifer and all this, then like, well, that right there triggers me to believe that there is a God, that Jesus Christ is real. I want to follow him instead of the darkness. And, I want to, you know, go to heaven when, my time is here. And I want to live a good, honest life and, just be a good person. So I don't, I don't go to church really at all. I actually did go for the first time in a long time last Sunday. My friend invited me. I would like to start going more, at least if I can, at least 2 or 3 times a month. I pray all the time. That's one thing I try to do every day and that I've done for the last 5 or 6 years is just pray, man. Pray for life, pray for thanks, the blessings I have in my life, people, a healthy life, friends, family, my dog, just everything, man. I pray every day, that I pray for friends going through tough times. I pray for, you know, people that I don't know, what, things that are going on in the world. And, I just pray for everybody and just, hope that one day we can all, live in peace and harmony and, get along with each other. There's too much, fighting and separation that's going on in the world. And, that's something that we need to get back to and, communication, everyone's on their phones now. I'm guilty of it,
Yeah, it's the day
but
day and age.
yeah, man. Yeah. It's tough to try to find that balance, but, I want to get back to, you know, friends hanging out all the time and staying off the phones and, having full, awareness and communication with you, when you're with your friends, not getting on your phone, stuff like that. So yeah, that's just a huge thing, man. That's part of my lifestyle now. And I've been super, super thankful and blessed that every business that I own has been successful. I have a lot of like extra time if I'm not, at my businesses to kind of do what I want to do and live life and everything. So I'm super blessed for that as well, but I try not to let my past define, who I am today. And, a lot of people probably only know me from my past. And that's another reason why I wanted to come on here and tell my story because, you know, I'm not who I used to be. I'm a completely changed person. And, I only try to do what's right, and be honest and treat people with respect and just be be someone that's part of the community that they can look up to and be inspired by and everything. So yeah, man, that was just like a big thing to come on here as well and just share my story. And, hopefully my story can, help out the next person that might be struggling and going through something. And, I just want to tell people that like, your life's not over. You might be 40 years old, but your life's not over. Like your life's just begun. Like if you, take it day by day and just work on yourself and, be positive and everything that, it gets better. It does. You might not think it does at the time or as quick as you want it to, but you gotta be positive. You gotta believe in yourself and, you gotta set goals. That's one thing. You gotta set goals. Like I have a 1 month plan. I've got a year plan. I've got a 5 year plan, a 10 year plan. I've got a retirement plan. I mean, I've got plans for the rest of my life and you have to set these goals for yourself. You got to have something that inspires you to keep going and like, work on yourself and all these goals and everything, so like every year I just try to set goals and, accomplish my goals and see where I'm at, the next year compared to, where I was years ago and everything. So it's cool to, set these goals and surpass them and, watch the growth and, you
Absolutely,
know,
dude.
all that. So it's
Yeah.
rewarding. It's
What
rewarding. And I've got a lot of friends, that and new people that I've just met in the last year, you know, that have came to me and just asked for help or say that they're super inspired by me or, you know, what be it. But I'm just super blessed all around, just to have all these things and people tell me, that I inspire them and everything. So it's a good feeling. It really is compared to, where I was years ago when I was
all
younger.
glory to
So
God, man. What a blessing.
absolutely. Yes, sir.
Yeah. So let me ask you this, because I was just on a different podcast right before this, and we were talking about plans and sometimes how, God will interrupt those plans and redirect you.
Hmm.
So have you had that experience yet to where you've mapped out, all these things for the next 10 years, like this is what I'm going to do.
Hmm.
Tell
Actually, just I'm going through it right now.
tell me about it.
I'm literally going through it right now. Well, so I was just dating a girl for about 3 years and we broke up. It's almost been a month. And, I had planned on proposing to her and we had talked about having kids and getting married in the next year. And it just kind of, things happened and I kind of had to leave that behind. And yeah, I'm going through it now and I'm trying to be positive and in the past when I was younger, when that stuff like that happened, I would start using again and try to fulfill that void of loneliness and time and try not to think of, you know, the thoughts in my head and just going through all that type of stuff. But, this time around it's, you know, what can I do to keep myself busy and be positive and like just look at it as in, just a different way, just try to like one right now I've got all these businesses. So I'm fulfilling my time with all my businesses and everything. And I'm about to start getting back in the gym and all that. But yeah, just trying to like live differently than I used to and just like be okay, like I told you, be okay with being lonely, be okay with myself. Everything happens for a reason. There's a reason why, the things that happen. And really all I can do is just, be thankful regardless of everything and just be positive and just continue to live my life. It hurts. I thought I had the rest of my life planned out. I thought I was going to get married and have kids. And that is something I've always wanted was a family. Really bad. And I'm turning 35 this summer. So it's like, man, I'm getting old, like that, you can get married whenever, but like having kids is tough as you get older. And, that's something that, I'm fighting with a little bit right now in my head, but it, I know God's got my back and, I'm being positive about everything and, everything happens for a reason. So,
Yeah. So you
you know,
believe in
I'm just
divine
taking it day
intervention?
by day. Definitely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So, yeah, I'm just taking it day by day and working on myself and being positive and, that's all I can do and just keep being positive, man. And, one day, maybe I'll have a family. So that's, just taking it day by day.
I mean, it's in God's master plan, I think, for all of us to build a family, to love and be loved. I think
Definitely.
that he is trying to show you something about, where you're at currently. Obviously, he doesn't want you to experience pain by, a relationship ending, but maybe he was protecting you from something later down the road,
Definitely.
either with this
Yeah.
relationship or, whatever the case may be. And so it seems like you're really looking at it from a really positive perspective and, not trying to blame anyone or, have negative thoughts about it, but really just focusing on, like you said, the gratitude of it.
Definitely. Yeah. I mean, you know, unfortunately, it was a little bit of a messy situation, but, I wish her nothing but the best. I hope, nothing but positive things happen for her. And, there's no hate or hard feelings. You know, sometimes things just happen and things just sometimes just don't work out, and like you said, man, it just, you know, there's got to be a reason or some divine intervention that, you know, happened. And,
Yeah, whether
you know,
you see it now or not,
yeah,
it's definitely
yeah,
there.
absolutely.
I mean, I look
Definitely.
back on it, dude, and I mean, you know, Megan and I, we had a daughter, but then she got into, this other relationship and had a son, and father hasn't seen him. I mean, it was at 2 years at the point that her and I reconnected, and now we're remarried. So spent 8 years apart,
Yeah.
remarried. Now I have a son that I've always wanted, and he's awesome. And so, I often think, I'm like, well, did all that really have to happen to be able to get us here? And maybe no, but in the grand
Yeah.
scheme of it, your life has already happened. You can't change it. It is what it is. And you just got to kind of, keep moving and know that God is working for you. Things
Definitely.
aren't happening to you. These things are working with you to be able to get you
Right.
where you need to go. And I think it's a cool part about, recovery and staying sober and just, having that perspective on life that, you're not a victim in this life. We're here to uplift and encourage others. And it seems that you really honor, the loyalty and friendships that you've developed over the years. And I would ask that you just continue to, be an encourager to your friends and be a light in the rooms that you walk in and continue to build people up. It seems like you're doing a really great job in that. So I, commend you on everything that you're doing. And, um, I know that one 1 year, 5 year, 10-year plan may look a certain way, but just continue to roll with the punches, dude. Things are going to happen. Life's going to crumble. The economy is kind of shaky, but at the end of the day, um, you're putting one foot in front of the other and you're giving your best efforts. And I just, again, commend you on everything that you're doing because it's not easy.
Appreciate it.
I mean, I'm 35. I turned 35 in January. And I often look at, the time here and it's like, have I done everything that I needed to do, at 35? And I've done a lot and I've overcome a lot. Um, but there's still so much work, to be done. And
Definitely.
try to focus on, the promise of what God's offering you. And I guarantee family's in there somewhere. But the more often that I feel like we actively try to find it, I mean, nothing's going to happen if you don't take action. But the more you prioritize it, I think the further away sometimes things get just because it's in God's times, it's not ours. Yeah, I'll be praying for you on that, dude, because
I
I've
appreciate it,
always
man.
wanted a family too, and I love my family inherently, and I would do anything for them. And so I know that, once God, gifts you with that opportunity, that you'll fulfill, every one of their needs.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, man.
I appreciate it. Yeah.
So I know, obviously, what was shared to us today is you being vulnerable and honest with me, and I greatly appreciate that. Thank you that your grief and your shame did not win, and that you really have overcome what you have done. I know that you're going to offer a lot of courage to other people who may not know how to ask for help, and give them strength to really take ownership over those things and find peace even in the middle of that rebuilding stage, because again, life is hard and the world's in a kind of an unstable place, and I think it's easy to look and perform the seven deadly sins of the world, which if you look at it, that's primarily what we see sin, we see gluttony, we see laziness, we see infidelity, like all these things that you know make up the world is predominantly what we experience. But the fruits of the spirit, if you learn to continue to walk with those, peace, gentleness, kindness, joyfulness, self-control, all those things that Jesus expressed here while he was on the earth, I think is a prime example of what you're doing. And again, commend you on that, brother. And I appreciate you being here.
Yeah, I appreciate you, man. Yeah, thank you for having me on and, let me share my story and you know, just be able to open up and just have a conversation about it, man. So, no, I appreciate you.
Absolutely, Harrison. Well, thanks for your time, brother. And thank you for all who's listening. Tune in, like, subscribe to the Sober Broker. We'd love to be able to have you here more often and share all of these other stories that have come along down the road. And again, Daniel, thank you so much.
Appreciate it, Patrick. Thank you,
Yes,
buddy.
sir. Take care.
Take care. Thank you.
Right.